In March 2025, several executions are scheduled across the United States, drawing attention to the legal battles and long histories of these individuals on death row. Each case tells a story of tragedy, crime, and the legal process that has led to this final stage. In this video, we will explore the backgrounds, crimes, trials, and current status of those scheduled for execution in March 2025. Brad Keith Sigmon, South Carolina. Brad Sigmon's case traces back to the early 2000s. He had been in a volatile relationship with Rebecca Barbar, which ended in 2001. Despite their breakup, Sigmon's obsession with her grew, leading to intense stalking behavior. In January 2001, Sigmon broke into the home of Rebecca's parents, David and Gladys, and brutally attacked them with a baseball bat. After killing them, he kidnapped Rebecca, planning to take her to North Carolina. However, she managed to escape, and despite being shot at, survived the attack. Sigmon was later apprehended by police. Sigmon's trial began in 2002. The prosecution presented strong evidence, including the weapon used in the murders. Sigmon was convicted and sentenced to death. Over the years, he filed multiple appeals, all of which were denied. Sigmon's execution is scheduled for March 7th, 2025. He chose to be executed by firing squad, citing concerns about the lethality of lethal injection. His execution will take place in South Carolina, marking a significant conclusion to a long legal process. David Leonard Wood, Texas. David Leonard Wood's criminal history began in 1976 when he was convicted of indecency with a minor. After serving a brief prison sentence, he was released, but soon began committing more serious crimes. His descent into violence escalated in the 1980s when he committed 2 rapes in El Paso, Texas. In 1987, Wood's arrest led police to discover the bodies of multiple women. He was eventually convicted of 6 murders. The circumstantial evidence, including fibers matching the victim's clothing and testimony from fellow inmates, pointed directly to Wood. His crimes shocked the community, and he was sentenced to death in 1992. Wood's trial was held in Dallas due to the extensive media coverage in El Paso. Despite maintaining his innocence, Wood was convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to death. David Leonard Wood's execution is scheduled for March 13, 2025. After spending over 30 years on death row, he is set to be executed by lethal injection. His case raises important questions about the long wait times on death row and the delays in executing death sentences. Jesse D. Hoffman Jr., Louisiana. In 1996, Jesse D. Hoffman Jr. kidnapped 28-year-old Mary Elliott after forcing her to withdraw money from an ATM. He then took her to a remote area where he murdered her. Hoffman's crime shocked the public and led to his swift arrest. Hoffman's violent crime involved kidnapping, assault, and ultimately the murder of Mary Elliott. After his arrest, Hoffman was charged with first-degree murder, and his case quickly moved to trial. In 1998, Hoffman was convicted of murder. His trial was marked by the brutality of his crime, and he was sentenced to death for his actions. Despite several appeals, Hoffman's conviction was upheld, and his case remains a key example of violent crime leading to the death penalty. Jesse D. Hoffman Jr.'s execution is scheduled for March 18, 2025, and will be carried out by nitrogen hypoxia, a method that has not been used in Louisiana before. This marks the first execution in the state in over 15 years, drawing significant attention to the ongoing use of the death penalty. Christopher Ciado, Louisiana. Christopher Ciado's crime was committed in 1992 when he brutally murdered his 6-year-old stepson, Wesley Allen Mercer. The child had suffered a minor injury at school, but Ciado and his wife withheld food and care for 2 days. Ciado's violence against the child escalated when Wesley hesitated to get into the bathtub. Ciado struck him with a screwdriver before submerging him in boiling water. The child was already dead by the time he arrived at the hospital. Seado was convicted of murder in 1993 and sentenced to death. However, his execution was delayed for years due to legal challenges and appeals. Despite the delay, his case remained a tragic example of child abuse and its devastating consequences. Seado was scheduled for execution on March 17, 2025. However, before his execution could take place, Seado passed away from natural causes in early 2025. He was suffering from multiple health issues, including chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which ultimately led to his death in prison. Aaron Brian Guns, Arizona. Aaron Brian Guns' crime occurred in 2012 when he kidnapped a man named Ted Price, intending to take him to a bus station. However, Guns took him to a remote area where he shot him multiple times. Guns then went on the run, only to be arrested the following day. Guns' actions were driven by a combination of violence and desperation. After shooting Price, he fled from the scene, leading to a police chase and his eventual capture. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. Guns pled guilty to the murder of Ted Price and was sentenced to death. Since then, he has requested that his execution be carried out and criticized the state for delays in the process. Aaron Brian Guns' execution is scheduled for March 19, 2025. After spending years on death row, he is set to be executed by lethal injection, having repeatedly asked for his execution to take place. Edward James, Florida. In 1993, Edward James committed a horrific crime in Florida. After a party, he found 9-year-old Toni Nunez sleeping in the living room and violently assaulted her. He then went on to kill her grandmother, Elizabeth Ann Betty Dick, before attacking another granddaughter. James's crime shocked the public for its brutality, and he was later captured after fleeing the scene. His trial resulted in a conviction and a death sentence. James pled guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder and was sentenced to death in 1995. The trial highlighted the extreme nature of his crime, which involved the violent deaths of 2 individuals, including a child. Edward James is scheduled for execution on March 20, 2025 in Florida. His case stands as a stark reminder of the extreme violence that can lead to death sentences. Wendell Arden Grom, Oklahoma. Wendell Grom's crime was committed in 2005 when he, along with his accomplice, randomly targeted a home for a burglary. Upon encountering the occupants, Grom shot and killed Drew Kopp and his friend Amber Matthews, a tragic crime that resulted in multiple deaths. After killing Drew Kopp, Grom went on to murder Amber Matthews, further escalating the violence. The case was marked by the random nature of the crime, but it ultimately led to Grom's arrest. Grom was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. His accomplice received a life sentence, while Grom's execution has been scheduled for March 20, 2025. Wendell Grom's execution is set for March 20, 2025, in Oklahoma. The case continues to draw attention for its brutal nature and the randomness of the crime. These cases represent the final stages of lengthy legal processes, shedding light on the complexities of the criminal justice system. From murder to kidnapping, and from lengthy trials to appeals, these individuals have spent years, even decades, awaiting their fates. As March 2025 approaches, these executions will bring attention to the death penalty, raising critical discussions about justice, morality, and the effectiveness of the legal system in handling such extreme cases. If you've stayed with us to the end, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There's much more to come. Stay tuned for more updates